Have you been recently diagnosed with a chronic illness and you're wondering how to stay on top of all of your treatments and stay organized? Then this video is for you. Hi everyone, my name is Kat and I have a number of different chronic illnesses. I have had these for many years and I have seen many different doctors, including over 50 specialists and a number of general practitioners. Today I want to share 13 tips with you on how to stay organized with your chronic illness because it can be quite overwhelming. I think these tips might help you because a lot of people are under the assumption that their doctor is going to tell them everything that they need to know about their illness or about their treatment plan, but that's just not the case. Doctors oftentimes do not have the time to go over everything with you, and it's really up to you to advocate for yourself and also to learn about your condition so you can talk to your doctor about it. Tip number 1 is to keep a medical journal with you. This is mine for 2020, and I have, for the last few years, been doing this. In this journal, there's a little pocket in the front, which is what I really love about this. So I usually write down my symptoms and my medical conditions, and I slip it in here so that when I bring it to the hospital or a doctor's office, like a new specialist, they can just photocopy it, and then I can keep it back in there, and then I update that list. Then as I go through, I just write in on one of the pieces of paper the date, the specialist, all of my symptoms that I'm having that I want to bring up, and all the questions that I have, and then on the other page or below it, I'll just write down what it is, a few notes about what they're talking about in the appointment. And then that's something that you can continuously go back over whenever you need to and kind of see patterns as well. You can also track your medications in terms of symptoms, side effects, getting off of it, getting on it, did it work, did it not work, so that you can take it to your doctors and just know for yourself. Tip number 2 is to take a look at the National Association of the condition that you currently have. Take a look at the facts page on that particular website. Always look for websites that say things like association, national association.org, society, things like that. And then you'll know you're on the right track. If you want to search a little bit more privately, I would recommend that you disassociate yourself from your Gmail account while you're searching on Google. Tip number 3 is to do your own research. This is really important because, as I said, doctors are not going to give you all of the information that you need for your condition. Sometimes they're a little bit outdated as well because they studied it a little while ago and there's been advancements. That's why it's really important to take a look at the National Association for your particular illness. So when you're in Google, I would type in google.scholar.com. And this is going to allow you to search for medical journals. You can also take a look at things like PubMed. Try using different keywords and search terms in different combinations. You can use Boolean search as well. If you don't know what Boolean search is, then I encourage you to go Google that. It will help you in getting more accurate results. Another thing that you can do is just to simply bookmark pages that are really relevant so that you can access them again and keep it organized by having different folders. Print out anything that you think is relevant for your doctor. Sometimes you'll get the sense that they are stuck on some myths about the condition because it's rare or because they just haven't dealt with it very much. And in this instance, it might be beneficial to bring some information to them, even if you're just looking for a diagnosis and you're saying, hey, these are my symptoms and they fit really well. This is why I want you to take a look at this. This is usually when you're stuck with your doctor and you're needing a little bit of help. You'll know that they're stuck on some myths if the National Association fact pages are conflicting with what your doctor is saying. Always present information cautiously to your doctor because you want to avoid saying that you think that your doctor is wrong or you think you know what your diagnosis is. Doctors have dedicated their lives to educating themselves on conditions, on the human body, and they are not going to appreciate if you bring to them what you think it is necessarily. Now, some doctors don't mind you bringing information and suggesting, hey, could we look into this? You really have to have this as sort of a trial and error process. Depending on your doctor, you have to kind of feel them out. A good doctor will allow you to speak your mind and will put their ego aside to understand that, hey, maybe you have been doing a lot of research and maybe there's something to it. Tip number 7 is to bring someone with you to your doctor's appointments, because this can help both you and the person that you're bringing to the appointment. So sometimes it helps because the doctor's giving you tons of information and you can't really keep up. So it's good to have somebody else there. Sometimes there's an emotional aspect to your appointment where you're kind of there, but you're not really fully listening because it might be a shock to you, or whatever the doctor's saying might be a little bit scary. So having somebody there can really help. It can also help that person to help you in the future. Tip number 8 is to always be nice to the medical receptionists. They can be quite jaded and forget that they are doing customer service. It is really important to be nice to them because they are the gatekeepers between you and your doctor. No matter how awesome your doctor is, if you are not in good standing with the medical secretary, then that can seriously get in the way of your care. Tip number 9 is do not be afraid to ask for a specialist or ask for a specific specialist by name. The worst that your doctor can say is no. You can always bring it up at a later date if it's something that your doctor's not comfortable with right now and wants to do initial testing to see if it's necessary. Tip number 10 is to quit a doctor or a specialist who is just not helping you and who time and time again just seems to be writing you off. It is totally okay to quit that doctor or to get a second opinion. I spent way too many years with one particular GP who was quite incompetent and ended up putting me in a very dangerous position when I developed a life-threatening illness. So I really strongly recommend that if you are not comfortable with your doctor or they are not helping you time and time again, please look further for somebody else. Tip number 11 is not so much a tip as it is a little bit of a warning. If you are medically complex or you have a rare condition, be prepared for your doctor or your alternative care practitioner to quit you. This means that they did not have the skill to continue helping you, and as hard as it is, it does happen. This is not a personal thing against you. It says more about the doctor than it does about you. And sometimes the doctor has done all they can do to help you. It's okay to be angry, scared, sad, and frustrated when this happens. Be kind to yourself. Tip number 12 is to look at ratemd.com. This is for Canada and the US. This is a really great resource for looking up specialists that you've been referred to or ones that you would like to be referred to that you've heard about, or just to find different specialists that you are in need of. Take everything on RateMD with a grain of salt, as every single doctor will probably have some negative reviews. Sometimes the negative reviews are simply about the medical receptionists. Sometimes, in fact, a lot of them are about the medical receptionists. Sometimes it's just about the doctor themselves in terms of punctuality, not necessarily their skill level. So it's really important to read through all of them, and again, take all of it with a grain of salt. You haven't met the doctor yet yourself, but it might help you determine who you want to see or who you want to ask your general practitioner for. Okay, my final tip, tip number 13. This should probably be tip number 1. Be very, very careful about websites and practitioners who seem legit but are not. This is really important because people get scammed all the time, especially with chronic and life-threatening conditions. A lot of the time when we are sick, we can be put in a position where we are desperate to get better and to get back to the lives that we used to have. This is really more about non-acceptance than it is about anything else. So it's really important to weed out people who are actual predators from people who could be helpful. Make sure that you look up the associations, like I mentioned prior. Make sure that if it is a word of mouth, you look into the credentials of that person. If there's an association, which there should be attached to anything, including acupuncture or psychotherapy, there should be an association that you can look up and make sure that this person is certified and regulated. Same goes for websites and information on the internet that may be either well-meaning or sometimes just totally not well-meaning and trying to sell you something. Be really, really careful. If somebody is telling you that there's a cure for your chronic illness or your life-threatening illness, take that with more than a grain of salt. Take that with 10 grains of salt. I am not suggesting that alternative practitioners or alternative medicine is not a good way of going about your illness. It can definitely be supplementary, but I do feel that the medical field has been looking into these conditions with good, solid science. And combining this with alternative practitioners and alternative therapies is really a well-rounded, more holistic view of things. Stay tuned for part 2 of my video where I share even more tips on how to manage your chronic illness.